Captain Riva of the Galactic Council stood frozen in the observation corridor, her four eyes wide with something between horror and fascination. Through the reinforced glass, she watched the human janitor push his cleaning cart down the sterile white hallway of Station Kepler 7. Nothing about this should have been remarkable. Humans had been part of the galactic community for nearly 2 decades now, and their presence was no longer unusual. What made Riva stop in her tracks was what followed behind the human. 7 Kryn cubs, their spotted fur still showing the soft patterns of youth, were stalking the human with an intensity that made Riva's secondary hearts skip. The Kryn were apex predators on their home world, descended from pack hunters that could take down prey 3 times their size. Even as cubs, they possessed reflexes that put most species to shame, and claws that could shred through standard hull plating. The human seemed completely unaware. He whistled some strange tune, stopping occasionally to spray cleaning solution on a smudge or pick up debris. His movements were casual, relaxed, utterly without fear. Riva reached for her communicator, ready to call security. The Kryn cubs shouldn't even be in this section. Their guardians must have lost track of them during the station's shift change. If they attacked the human, it would create an interstellar incident. The Kryn matriarchy was already touchy about allowing their youth off-world for education. Before she could raise the alarm, the human did something inexplicable. He pulled a dirty rag from his cart, the kind used to clean lubricant spills from maintenance bays. Without looking behind him, he tossed it casually over his shoulder. The cloth skittered across the smooth floor, spinning and sliding. The reaction was instantaneous. All 7 cubs exploded into motion, their careful stalking forgotten in a frenzy of scrambling limbs and excited chirps. They crashed into each other, rolled across the floor, and fought over the grimy rag as if it were the most valuable treasure in the galaxy. One cub emerged victorious, the rag clenched in her teeth, while the others gave chase as she bounded away. Riva's translator chip caught the human's chuckle. "Good kids," he said to no one in particular. The cubs returned within moments, dropping the rag at the human's feet. He picked it up, examined it with mock seriousness, then tossed it again. Once more, the cubs exploded into joyful chaos. This wasn't an attack. This was play. Riva felt her understanding of both species shift slightly. She had read the human files, of course. Everyone in the council had. Humans were classified as persistence predators with unusual social bonding behaviors and an alarming tendency to treat potentially dangerous situations as opportunities for what they called fun. But reading reports and watching the behavior unfold were entirely different experiences. The human, whose name tag read Marcus Chen, seemed to have adopted an entire pack of juvenile apex predators without even trying. Over the next hour, Riva found herself unable to leave. She should have been reviewing supply requisitions for the station's outer sectors, but instead she watched Marcus work his way through the corridor with his entourage of increasingly devoted cubs. He showed them how to polish surfaces until they could see their reflections. He let them investigate the various tools on his cart, only intervening when one cub tried to drink the cleaning solution. He taught them to line up and take turns catching the rag. By the time the cubs' guardians finally arrived, their translator implants crackling with apologies and distress, the young Kryn had learned to sit in a neat row while Marcus inspected the corridor they had helped him clean. "Are these yours?" Marcus asked calmly, gesturing to the cubs. The lead guardian, a scarred veteran named Thros, looked between the human and the cubs with visible confusion. "Yes. They escaped from the education wing. We have been searching for an hour. We feared they might have harmed someone or damaged property." "They've been helping me clean," Marcus said. "Good workers, actually. Bit enthusiastic, but they learn fast." Thros's ears flattened in the Kryn expression of disbelief. "They helped you?" "Sure." Marcus tossed the rag one more time. The cubs remained seated, though Riva could see them trembling with the desire to chase. "See? Discipline!" He nodded, and the cubs exploded forward. "How did you accomplish this?" Thros demanded. "These cubs are barely 6 seasons old. They should not have the focus for such training, especially not from a stranger." Marcus shrugged as he collected the rag from the victorious cub. Kids are kids. They want to play, they want to learn, they want someone to pay attention to them. Species doesn't change that much. Riva watched Thros process this statement. The Kryn Guardian seemed torn between professional concern and genuine curiosity. "You were not afraid of them?" "Afraid?" Marcus looked at the cubs, who were now wrestling over who got to push the cleaning cart. "Why would I be afraid? They're just kids having fun." "They are Kryn," Thros said flatly. "We are hunters. Our young are born with instincts to kill." "So are human kids, technically," Marcus replied. "We're persistence predators. We literally evolved to chase prey until it died of exhaustion. But that doesn't mean every human child is dangerous. It means they need guidance, exercise, and something constructive to do with all that energy." He knelt down, bringing himself to eye level with the cubs. "You all did great work today. Next time, though, you need to tell your teachers where you're going, okay? They were worried about you." The cubs chirped and clicked, their translator implants rendering it as affirmative responses mixed with requests to play again tomorrow. Thros watched this exchange with an expression Riva's translator couldn't quite parse. When the cubs had been rounded up and guided back toward the education wing, still chattering excitedly about rags and cleaning, the Kryn Guardian turned to Marcus. "What you did today," Thros said carefully. "Our people have worked for generations to achieve that kind of rapport with our young. You did it in an hour with a piece of cloth." Marcus looked uncomfortable with the praise. "I just kept them busy and gave them something fun to do. Anyone could have done it." "No," Thros said firmly. "Not anyone. I have seen other species encounter our cubs. They either flee or prepare for confrontation. You saw children and acted accordingly." Riva decided it was time to make her presence known. She emerged from the observation corridor, her official council robes identifying her rank. Both Marcus and Thros straightened, though Marcus looked more confused than respectful. "I witnessed what occurred," Riva said. "I must ask, Marcus Chen, where did you learn Kryn child-rearing techniques?" Marcus blinked. "I didn't. I used to volunteer at an animal shelter back on Earth. We got all kinds of strays, from puppies to foxes, to the occasional wolf cub someone's idiot relative tried to keep as a pet. You learn pretty quick that most young predators just want the same things: play, structure, and someone who treats them like they matter." "You compared our cubs to animals?" Thros's tone was dangerous. "I compared all kids to kids," Marcus corrected. "Human, Kryn, or otherwise. Look, I've got 2 nephews back home. Same age as those cubs, developmentally speaking. They're terrors when they're bored and angels when they're engaged. Give them something to chase, some clear rules, and someone who isn't afraid of them, and they're great." Riva found herself making a note in her personal log. The human psychological profile was accurate in unexpected ways. They really did see patterns of behavior across species boundaries that others missed. It wasn't that they were fearless, she realized. It was that they categorized threats differently. Where Thros saw dangerous predator cubs, Marcus saw bored children. "The station director should hear of this," Riva said. "The education wing has struggled with the Kryn cubs. They are brilliant students but difficult to manage. Traditional Kryn discipline does not translate well to a multi-species station environment." Marcus held up his hands. "I'm just a janitor. I clean floors. I'm not qualified to teach anyone's kids." "You taught them discipline and cooperation in an hour," Thros pointed out. "That is more than their assigned educators have managed in weeks." Over the following days, word spread through Station Kepler 7 about the human janitor and the Kryn cubs. Riva found herself drafted into meetings about educational protocols and species integration. The Kryn matriarchy sent an observer. The Human Diplomatic Corps dispatched 3 specialists in xenopedagogy, all of whom seemed baffled that a janitor had accomplished what they'd been theorizing about for years. Marcus, for his part, tried to maintain that he'd done nothing special, but every shift, the cubs found him. They helped him clean, learned the name of every tool on his cart, and competed for who could make a surface shine brightest. Other station residents began to notice that the corridors Marcus cleaned stayed cleaner, because a pack of Kryn cubs now considered it their territory and would scold anyone who left litter. The breakthrough came when a group of Thaxian students, normally shy and withdrawn, saw the Kryn cubs playing with Marcus. Thaxians were herbivores, their evolutionary history spent fleeing from predators. The idea of approaching a Kryn, even a cub, was psychologically difficult for them. But when they saw a human tossing a rag and cubs chasing it with joy rather than violence, something shifted. One brave Thaxian student asked if she could try. Marcus showed her how to throw the rag. The cubs, recognizing a new playmate, adjusted their roughhousing to accommodate her smaller size and frailer build. Within a week, the corridors Marcus cleaned had become an impromptu integration zone. Students from a dozen species found themselves playing together, united by simple games and a human who treated everyone the same. He corrected a Thryn cub's aggressive behavior with the same calm firmness he used on a human student's rudeness. He praised a Thaxian's clever throw with the same enthusiasm he showed for a Kryn's impressive catch. Riva watched it all from her observation point, making notes that would eventually become a report to the full Galactic Council. Humans, she wrote, possess an unusual ability to recognize universal patterns in behavior. Where we see species differences, they see individual personalities. Where we see danger, they see potential. Their history of domesticating dozens of predator species on their own world has given them an intuitive understanding of how to build trust across evolutionary boundaries. But there was something else, something harder to quantify. Humans seemed to genuinely enjoy the company of other species in a way that went beyond diplomatic courtesy or scientific curiosity. They formed bonds easily, treating aliens with the same casual affection they showed their own kind. The rag, that simple piece of cloth, had become a symbol throughout the station. Other maintenance workers started carrying similar items. Teachers in the education wing incorporated play into their curricula. The Kryn matriarchy, initially suspicious, sent a formal thank you to Marcus and requested he consult on their youth integration programs. Marcus declined the consulting job, citing his love for his current position, but he did agree to record some training materials. Riva watched the recordings later, studying them for insights into human psychology. "The thing about kids," Marcus said into the camera, "is that they don't care about your politics or your history or your species classification. They care about whether you're fun, whether you're fair, and whether you see them as individuals. Treat them with respect, give them clear boundaries, and let them play. The rest usually works itself out." Simple advice. Almost absurdly simple. Yet it had accomplished what diplomatic initiatives and educational reforms had failed to achieve. 3 months after the rag incident, Riva stood in the same observation corridor, watching Marcus work. The cubs still followed him, though they were larger now, their adult patterns starting to show through their juvenile spots. They brought him problems from their classes, asked his advice on social conflicts, and still competed to see who could make a corridor shine brightest. But they weren't alone anymore. Students from 18 different species now congregated in Marcus's corridors. They formed study groups, played improvised games, and learned to communicate across cultural divides. Some of the galaxy's future diplomats, scientists, and leaders were being shaped by a human janitor who'd simply treated everyone with kindness and expected the best from them. Riva added a final note to her report. Humanity's greatest weapon, she wrote, is not their technology or their tactical thinking. It is their ability to see people rather than categories, to build bridges with nothing more than patience and a willingness to play. They slide a rag across the floor, and others dive for it as if it were a trophy. In doing so, they teach us all something profound about connection, trust, and the universal language of joy. She saved the report, marked it for council review, and went down to the corridor. Marcus was showing a group of students how to remove a particularly stubborn stain. When he saw her, he nodded respectfully. "Captain, need something cleaned?" Riva smiled, a gesture her species had learned from humans. "No, I came to learn." Marcus looked puzzled, but gestured her over. "Sure, grab a rag." And so a galactic council captain learned to clean floors alongside students from across known space, all of them united by the simple joy of making something shine. The human had slid a rag across the floor, and they had all dove for it as if it were a trophy. In many ways, it was.